even if your candidate doesn't always win. We compete hard in campaigns in America and here in Greece. But after the election, democracy depends on a peaceful transition of power, especially when you don't get the results you want. And as you may have noticed, the next American president and I could not be more different. We have very different points of view, but American democracy is bigger than any one person. And that's why we have a tradition of the outgoing president welcoming the new one in, as I did last week. And why in the coming weeks my administration will do everything we can to support the smoothest transition possible, because that's how democracy has to work. And that's why, as hard as it can be sometimes, it's important for young people in particular, who are just now becoming involved in the lives of their countries, to understand that progress follows a winding path. Sometimes forward, sometimes back. But as long as we retain our faith in democracy, as long as we retain our faith in the people, as long as we don't waver from those central principles that ensure a lively, open debate, then our future will be okay. Because it remains the most effective form of government ever devised by man. It is true, of course, over the last several years that we've seen democracies faced with serious challenges. And I want to mention two.
President Obama on his last foreign trip as US president in Athens, opening his speech with a tribute to the birthplace of democracy. For those leaving us, good to have you with us here on BBC World News.
The paradox of a modern global economy. The same forces of globalization and technology and integration that have delivered so much progress, have created so much wealth, have also revealed deep fault lines. Around the world, integration and closer cooperation and greater trade and commerce and the internet all have improved the lives of billions of people, lifted families from extreme poverty, cured diseases, helped people live longer, gave them more access to education and opportunity than at any time in human history. I've often said to young people in the United States, if you had to choose a moment in history to be born and you did not know ahead of time who you would be, you didn't know whether you were going to be born into a wealthy family or a poor family, what country you'd be born, whether you were going to be a man or a woman. If you had to choose blindly what moment you'd want to be born, you'd choose now. Because the world has never collectively been wealthier, better educated, healthier, less violent than it is today. That's hard to imagine given what we see in the news, but it's true. And a lot of that has to do with the developments of an integrated global economy. But trends underway for decades have meant that in many countries and in many communities, there have been enormous disruptions. Technology and automation means that goods can be produced with fewer workers. It means jobs in manufacturing can move across borders where wages are lower or rights are less protected. And that means that workers and unions oftentimes have less leverage to bargain for better wages, better benefits, have more difficulty competing in the global marketplace. Hardworking families worry their kids may not be better off than they were because of this global competition. What we've also seen is that this global integration is increasing the tendencies towards inequality, both between nations and within nations, at an accelerated pace. And when we see people, global elites, wealthy corporations, seemingly living by a different set of rules, avoiding taxes, manipulating loopholes, when the rich and the powerful appear to game the system and accumulate vast wealth while middle and working class families struggle to make ends meet, this feeds a profound sense of injustice and a feeling that our economies are increasingly unfair. And this inequality now constitutes one of the greatest challenges to our economies and to our democracies. An inequality that was once tolerated because people didn't know how unequal things were, now won't be tolerated because everybody has a cell phone and can see how unequal things are. The awareness that people have in the smallest African village, they can see how people in London or New York are living. The poorest child in any of our countries.
We're going to take a moment to talk about President Obama's last foreign trip and the speech he's making. With me still is Carlos Watson from the millennial news site, Aussie.com. He's reaching out to Greeks and to Europeans here. It'd be fair to say the international community, people out there, still very much in love, many people, with President Obama. And wasn't it interesting that he made the point, I'm very different to Donald Trump, because he's having to reassure people, isn't he?
It's certainly, I think, again, not only in the U.S. for people surprised, but around the globe. And over the last year, I'm sure he's had lots of private conversations and lots of public signals that suggested that he didn't expect the president-elect to become the president-elect. And so I think on questions of trade, on questions of immigration, and frankly on questions of national security, including NATO, you heard him here in this speech and over the last several days trying to assure people that there's a more centrist path, or as he called it in his news conference a couple days ago, a pragmatic path forward for President-elect Trump.
The reality is we still don't know what to expect. We don't know how much of the campaign rhetoric from Donald Trump is going to become reality and how much he's going to take a different path, do we? We haven't had any of those signals yet.
We haven't, and I think part of what I'm sure President Obama is saying to friends and allies alike is remember someone like President Reagan, who ran quite a, at the time, out of the mainstream campaign in 1980, won an unexpected win, won by some 10 points back in 1980, and ended up moderating some of his positions, not all of them, but enough so that people felt like they could work with him, including famously, obviously, Margaret Thatcher and others. So I think that's his best case scenario. His worst case scenario is, as he said in the speech, and we just heard him say it, is that democracy is bigger than any one person. We have these decisions every 4 years, and by the way, the executive branch is just one branch, and there's also, of course, the legislative branch and the Supreme Court.
So much of the media here at the moment is focusing on the transition and the infighting in the transition. But when you hear President Obama there talk about some of those big themes, like global inequality, and how that is playing out here in the US, is there a bigger conversation that is continuing about wage inequality here in the US, disillusionment with the political elite? Do you feel that with this election of Donald Trump, that conversation is now becoming more mainstream?
It will be, and it wasn't just Donald Trump, but certainly it was Bernie Sanders, and I think both of them raised questions around the conversation of inequality, and certainly followed on the Occupy Wall Street movement, which you recall was just a couple of years ago. And so I think that will be interesting. One of the opportunities for potential bipartisan compromise will be around this so-called infrastructure bill, where there's an argument that there are working class jobs that could be created at the same time that some of the roads, the bridges, the schools in America are fixed, and that might be an opportunity to deal with some of the effects of globalization, which have seen jobs that otherwise could have gone to folks who don't have college degrees brought back here. So possibilities.
Does it feel to you that the country is now reconciled to this Trump presidency? Because we're still seeing, people talking about the popular vote, the fact that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Is some of the anger dying away, or is it still very much alive in parts of the country?
You certainly see protests